Again, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our session on such a short notice. My name is Nikhil. I work with GMAT Club. The forum username of mine is Workout. So please feel free to ping me with any questions on the forum. So this session is specifically dedicated for discussing the IIM Ahmedabad application essays. So we have with us Abhishek and Manan to provide their insights on these questions. Abhishek, can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Thanks, Nikhil, and thank you to the GMAT Club team for inviting me. Hi everyone. My name is Abhishek Chawla. I work as a strategy consultant, but at the same time, I also help people with their MBA applications. That's something that I've been passionate about over the years. And specifically for IIM Ahmedabad, I've kind of been in your shoes before because I was in the same boat as you guys are. So I applied. I got an admit from both ISB and Ahmedabad, but then I chose ISB over Ahmedabad. Again, that's a personal choice, a tough one, but you can only go to one school, right? So I went to ISB, so I'm an ISB alum, but at the same time, I think both the schools are a great choice, and so it's a good problem to have. So I hope you guys convert as many schools as you are aiming for, and hopefully get into the school of your choice. So with that, I'll pause, and I look forward to interacting with all of you today.
Sounds good. Again, thank you very much for joining us. Manan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Nikhil, for having me here again. I believe I did interact with a few of you in the past about the ISB session. So my name is Manan Puri. I have almost 11 years of experience across the financial services and HR consulting industry. Now I'm an entrepreneur. I'm also an ISB alum and had admits from NUS and NTU when I applied. Again, as Abhishek mentioned, these are good problems to have. Again, the idea for the session is for you to ask anything with respect to the essays of Ahmedabad, and also we're happy to answer questions around the interview process as well, which is pretty much standard. At least 80% of it is standard compared to all other B schools, but there are certain nuances with respect to Ahmedabad, which Abhishek will be happy to cover. And looking forward to an interactive session. Thank you.
Sounds good. So just to make sure that everyone is on the same plate, I would probably want to discuss starting the essay questions. Maybe Abhishek, we can just start by providing your insights on the essay questions. What do you think of them? And then I can open the floor for everyone to ask their questions. So we can start with the first essay question. Do you have them handy, or do you want me to read them out?
Yeah, if you could read those out, that would be great, Nikhil. But
Okay.
before we do that, I mean, overall, my sense is that, see, Ahmedabad's always been, following this pattern wherein they'll give you very limited time and they'll ask you to write lengthy essays. Other B schools have lower word limits than what Ahmedabad does. So I can truly understand that, you guys might be in a little panicky, but I think all of you are smart enough, and that's why you have made the shortlist. And you should be able to cover, those essay questions in the next couple of days. So don't worry about it. And yeah, please feel free to ask me any specific questions as we get into the specific essays.
Sounds great. So we can just start with the first essay question. So I will read it out. Why do you want to do an MBA during these uncertain times? How does that align with your future career goals? Please speculate on your 5 and 10-year post MBA career trajectory. So the word limit for this is like 1,000 words.
Yeah. So it's not just one question. I think it's three questions in one.
Yeah.
And let's look at them part by part so that you break it down and you understand those, right? So the first question is, in fact, Nikhil, if you could just post them on the chat window, it'll be helpful for me as well. So the first leg of the question is on the decision of going for an MBA during these uncertain times. I think it's a very relevant question. The way you can go about answering the question is not just say that because of the situation I'm going for an MBA, but it's rather the other way around. It's I already had a plan to apply to B schools this year, or I already had the MBA plan. It's just that the pandemic happened and the situation changed across the country or across the globe, and how that has accentuated your plan, or actually makes more sense to do an MBA now versus later. So, see, my personal view on that is, you should ride the storm and you should come out as a upskilled or reskilled individual or professional, and you should be getting into the market when things are looking up. See, right now, we've seen GDP numbers coming in, or otherwise, I'm sure all of you know how the pandemic has hit the global economy and the Indian economy. But no pandemic in human history has lasted for more than a year or a year and a half. And if we look back, every 10 years there is this economic cycle, when there are peaks and troughs, right? So if I go back, say, around 10 years, say 2008 9, we had uh, a recession. India was not as impacted as some of the global economies, but we did have a global credit crunch which resulted in a recession. 10 years before that, 99 2000 was the dot-com bust, the Asian financial crisis, etc. 10 years before that, it was the USSR breakup in 89 90, and the US recession and the Japanese recession, etc. 10 years before that, it was the oil spike and the crisis because of that. So what I'm trying to tell you is that every 10 years there would be something or the other. The reason would be different, but it is an economic cycle. Now imagine if you were graduating from your B school in 2010, right? You would have seen 10 years of massive bull run across the globe. This was the biggest bull run that we have seen in history, right? And imagine starting in 2010, you would have just seen an upward trajectory in your career, or the second phase of your career, given that all of you would have prior work ex, right? Versus starting in 2008, or starting in 2020, right? So the idea is that how you weave the story is that you were always looking for an MBA, trying to get into a B school of your choice, and the pandemic is actually accentuating that decision, or it is acting as a catalyst, and kind of validating that point. Because see, you'll apply in 2020, you'll get into the class in 21, and you graduate in 2022. So the economic scenario in 2022 will be very different from what we see today. And as I said, no pandemic or no recession is likely to last that long. So when you get into your placements, or you get into the job market in 2022, you would actually be at a point where things would be looking up, and then you'll have a good 5 to 10 years of an upward growth trajectory, and that's probably the best time to get into the market. So that's what I would say. It's actually having that plan always. Don't say that, oh, I was not going for it, but now because it's a pandemic situation, I thought, okay, I would rather go to B school. No, that's a bad answer. A good answer is when you talk about your firm plans of going for an MBA, and how the pandemic has actually helped you validate that decision that this is the right time. So that's the first part. I'll pause there. I'll take any questions before we move to the second part, and then towards the end, I'll just put it all together, and help you structure the essay so that it's easy. Because I do understand you've got like what 48 hours or so, so it's not going to be that easy to write those essays.
Got it. Sounds good. I see Sujit has a question regarding essay. Sujit, do you want to unmute and ask the question?
Yeah, hello. Am I audible?
Yes, we can
Yeah,
hear you.
Sujit.
Yeah, so thank you for the inputs. And I have already made my draft for this essay, and it was somewhat in the line what you have suggested here. So thanks for that. I just had one query. The point that I have mentioned is like currently I am in sales and marketing profile, and in that profile I am from past almost 3.5 years. So I have made a point of this that like my decision to pursue an MBA has been taken like 3.5 years back when I started this my job in sales and marketing profile. So I'm just in this second mind that maybe that it would put a little bad impression that in the entire work experience of 6 years, my decision to pursue the MBA is like just 3 years old, and before that
Uh,
there was no plan for that. So
uh,
just wanted to have your input on that.
Sujit, I don't think it's a negative. Uh, I think it's a good decision, and good decisions can be taken anytime. It's better late than never, right? So, and given you know a school like Ahmedabad or a program like PGPX, which has people with minimum of 4 years of work ex and an average is around 8.5 years or so, obviously, people would have taken that decision around this time or even later, right? And
Right.
things happen, there are situations that people get in, and that is what life is all about. So I don't think it's going to be a negative. See, as long as you can justify anything that you're mentioning in your essays, it is fine. Okay, so don't think that, oh, should I mention that I have been planning for the last 3 years or 1 year or 6 months? It doesn't matter. What matters is whatever you are presenting in your essays or your story, are you able to justify that in your interview? And for all you guys, it's gonna be both the essays and the interview, right? And
Correct.
that's how it's always been for Ahmedabad. So look at it from that perspective, you know and even for other B schools, wherever you are applying, look at it from the perspective of discussing that in your interview. Not Don't just write stuff for the heck of it. And when you have 1000 words, I know you can be inclined on elaborating stuff and talking about things which may not be required or may not be necessary if for that essay. So avoid doing that. Stick to the point, keep it concise and crisp, but always try and understand what would the reader think when he reads those specific lines or those specific paragraphs of your essay, and what is he likely to ask you. Now, if you
Right.
can preempt that, you will always, be ahead of the curve, and you'll always be kind of preparing yourself for the interview as well. It's important to have that mindset, and obviously, take as many mocks in the next few days as possible. But always write your essays thinking about the interview, because eventually you have to defend them in the interview. Okay, but to answer your specific question, don't worry about it. It's your personal life, it's your career, it's you who is going to decide when to go for an MBA, and nobody is going to really pick you on that. So don't worry about it.
Okay. Thank you, Abhishek, for the input.
Thanks, Sujit.
Got it. Sounds good. So I see some more people have questions, but let's discuss all the essay questions first so everyone gets an idea of what the essay questions are. Then we can take in everyone's questions.
Sure.
So with that,
Sure.
we can get started with the essay number 2. I'll just read out the essay.
Actually, Nikhil, I just touched upon one leg of the first essay, not the
Sure,
complete
sure.
essay, right? So I'll just
Okay.
take a few minutes on that again, because it's a long essay. 1,000 words. It's pretty long, and there are three questions in one for essay one. I think we need to give its due, right?
Sure,
So
definitely.
the second leg is on, how does that align with your future career goals? So again, this is more like why MBA, and what are your short term, long term goals, and why MBA or PGPX will help you achieve those goals. So again, I think it's important to connect the dots in your story. It's important that you probably start with a context or a background, then talk about where you are in your career, and then also mention the skill gaps or the experience gaps, or the need for reskilling, etc., so as to attain a higher position or a leadership position going forward. And that's what will help you answer this part of the question, which is, how does that align with your future career goals. What's important here is to keep it specific. Everybody can say, oh, I want to be a CXO level guy. Uh, I mean, it doesn't tell me anything. If you say, I want to be a CFO with, say, an oil and gas company, okay, that is very, very specific than saying, I want to be a C-suite executive. That is very broad, right? So the more specific you would be, the better your chances of one, lower cross questioning in the interview, and second, making that impression of having that thought clarity and clarity of goals, getting into the MBA program. So I think making it specific is very important. And as I said, with 1000 words, you may be tempted to write a lot more than what is needed. So keep that in check. Yes, 1000 words are there at your perusal, but you need not go for 1000. Even if you go with say 850, 900 words, it is fine. The idea is to keep it to the point, and only get into the details that are necessary. The third point or the third leg of the first essay question is, please speculate on your 5 and 10 year post MBA career trajectory. Now, speculate is not probably the right word, but I understand what they're trying to say here. And that's basically, your short term and long term career goals. Like, I mean, uh, a lot of people believe that post a top tier MBA, I will just get a, mid to senior level position, and I'll just immediately achieve a goal, and then in 10 years I can be an MD. Honestly, it doesn't happen that way. Okay, even if you come from Harvard Business School, you have to perform wherever you go, and you have to prove that you are worthy of a mid or a senior level role. So while you will get a foot in the door because you come from a top B school, or say IIM Ahmedabad in this case, you have to perform, right? And that is why the 5 year goal is more like a short term goal, and the 10 year goal is more like a long term goal. So think of that perspective, and talk about each of those goals and the requirements of those goals, and how your MBA curriculum and the MBA experience will help you achieve those goals. By being ready for taking those challenges when you get into the job market after the MBA. So just to sum it up and put it all together, I think the way I look at essay one is that, say, out of the 1000 words, you can structure it in this way. uh, the first paragraph is on context setting, where you touch upon your experience and your career so far, and even talk about the skill gaps. That can be around 100 words. The next paragraph could be on the first leg of this particular essay, which is, why do you want to do an MBA during these times. That can be say around 200 to 250 words. The next paragraph could be on the second leg, which is on how does that align with your future career goals. So touch upon your goals, and how does this MBA decision fit in there. Again, it can be around 200 to 250 words. The next para could be on the short term and long term goals, again 200 to 250 words. And the final, or the fifth paragraph, could be a conclusion, where you just bring it all together, you just sum it up and say, this is where I am, this is what my goals are, and this is why I believe the MBA at IIM Ahmedabad will help me achieve those goals.
Got it. Sounds good. I see some people have questions, but again, as I said, let's discuss all the questions first. And then once we're done with that, I will just open the floor and we will discuss all the questions. So going to essay 2, what is so special about you that professors and peers would like to have you in the class? The word limit is 500.
Yeah. So again, it's a typical why essay. Most of these B schools ask you, why should we consider your candidature, or if we were to take one more candidate, why should it be you? So it's a question on those lines. Uh, what is so special about you that professor and peers would like to have you in the class? So uh, I think it's important to talk about at least 2 to 4 traits. Don't just talk about, uh, this is what I did, and then I switched my job, and this is what I did there, etc. Don't make it an elaborated version of your CV. Okay, uh, bring it to very specific, crystallized themes or traits of your personality, and that is what you're going to bring to the table, and elaborate on those themes or traits. As I said, you got 500 words, you can choose up to 2 to 4 traits. The idea is to choose quality over quantity. So even if you're going with, say, 2 traits, it's important to demonstrate them, rather than having 4 traits and saying, oh, I did this, then I did that, and just making it an elaborated version of the CV, and having 4 bullet points there. The way you should structure this one is that you can start with with an overview kind of a paragraph, or an introductory paragraph, wherein that can be around 100 words, wherein you give a brief about yourself, and what your experience has been. And then for each of the traits that you are emphasizing on, have one paragraph dedicatedly, say 100 to 150 words, wherein you talk about a particular trait. So it can be, say, innovation. So you talk about innovation, you say, this is what the situation was, this is how I brought the innovation to the table, and what was the impact, try to quantify the impact. uh, because otherwise it's very easy to say, hey, I'm a great team player, but how do you justify that? I mean, if there are 500 people shortlisted or 400 people shortlisted, whatever the number would be, nobody will say that I'm not a great team player, or I'm not a great leader, right? But what will differentiate you from the rest of the pack is how specific you are in substantiating the points that you're claiming, right? Everybody can say, I'm a great team player, I'm a great leader, blah blah blah, but the difference between a good essay and a great essay would be how do you go beyond that and actually give very specific examples. So, be very specific on the situation, be very specific on what you did in that situation, and again, be very specific on what the outcome or the impact was. Now, the outcome could be number of dollars generated or revenue generated for your organization, or the cost saved for your organization, or the number of people impacted, say if you were in the social sector, right? So be very specific, and try to make it as quantifiable as possible, because then that helps the reader understand what the magnitude of impact was. uh, and then, after those 2 or 4 paragraphs, depending upon how many points you want to highlight, just sum it all up in a concluding paragraph where you just bring it all together and mention why you. So, here, because you've specifically asked about the professors and the peer set, it's important to touch upon how your profile is different from the rest of the pack. So, yes, there are people from diverse backgrounds like defense, or arts, or maybe some chartered accountants, or some media professionals, or whatever. But the truth is that I think at least around 70% of the people would be engineers. And I think if I take that number, 70% of you in this session would also be engineers. And that brings the question that, okay, how do I differentiate myself if I belong to that category, which is an overrepresented, or a majority of the pool, right? So there it's going to be important that what are the traits that you're talking about. See, you can be an engineer and so can somebody else, but your qualities and your traits can be completely different, right? And it's also important to talk about your personality and not just your work or your academics. So, bring out your personality. If you are good with music, if you're good with dance, if you're good at sports, it's fine to talk about that, because that actually, kind of completes the whole B school experience. It's not just acad, it's not just the rigor of the academics, or the professional networking, but it's also much more. It's also the life skills and experiences that you guys will share with each other during the 1 year. So focus on that, and it also adds some color to your profile, which does help differentiate you. And talking about professors specifically, usually the B schools don't ask about professors, but I think since you bring a relevant experience, you can always talk about how your experience will add to the class discussion. And say a lot of these professors, say, IIM Ahmedabad or any other top B school like ISB, or others, have fantastic faculty members. There's no doubt about it. Many of them are actually also working with the government in various committees, or as consultants with certain companies. So they do have experience. But for your class, not everybody would be coming in with the same experience or the same skill set. So if you are able to complement uh, what is being taught in the class with something that you have experienced in real life, I think that's a big positive, right? And that's the whole idea of going for an MBA at a school like Ahmedabad after, say, 5-7 years of work, whatever the case is. uh, you'll meet some very good people or great people from different walks of life who will add to the class experience. So I think that's what you should focus on. So with that, I think I've kind of covered it all, and yeah, in case you have any specific questions, I can take them as well.
Got it. Sounds good. So we just have one more question, the essay 3. Let's discuss that question and we can just take the questions from the applicants. So the essay 3 is, do you have anything special that you would want the admissions committee to know? The word limit for this one is 500.
Okay. uh, so I think this is again similar to the second question, but it is different. And it may sound like an optional essay, but I think it's not an optional essay in this case. So you need to write this essay. Now there can be various scenarios. Okay. Usually this kind of an essay comes in wherein you need to tell them something that's unique to you. For example, a gap in work experience or a gap in academics, or some other situations that you want them to be aware of, which can impact your candidature. So feel free to talk about those experiences, and see, it's not a negative. If you've had a break or a gap in your academic or work life, it is fine, as long as you can justify why you did that. So I mean, just to give you an example, one of my classmates at ISB took 1 year off after his fill standard, and he prepared for the engineering entrances, and then he went to an IIT, and then he went to ISB after like 3 to 4 years of work. So he could get in despite having that 1 year gap, because he could justify that he did something in that 1 year, it was productive for him, and he was able to get into an IIT. So similarly, if you are able to justify why you took a break, or what was the reason for that gap, and you are able to explain that, I think the school is fine. Now, in case you don't have any such special situation, and you still need to attempt the essay, I think what's important is that you talk about skills or traits that you haven't mentioned before. So, I can give you an example. So, I was speaking to somebody, and again, somebody I know, and we were speaking of the same essay questions. This was yesterday when the questions were announced, and that person has a very different work ex, because he's out of 10 years that he's worked, he's worked in Africa for about 8 years, and he's also lived in in various different cities, both in India and abroad. And we thought, okay, why don't you bring out that multicultural experience in this third essay? Okay. And that's something that you can, talk about, because it's something very different. Not everybody in the applicant pool would have had those experiences of living in different countries and different cities, and then, having that adaptability of, adapting to various situations and various cultures. And he's also worked with people from different nationalities, etc. So that is something that's very, very different, and that should stand out. And that's the anything special that that guy has. And that's why I suggested him that, why don't you just go with that. So if you have something like that, please go for it, because that will strongly enhance your chances of getting that coveted PGPX or IIM Ahmedabad admission. So that's what I would say. Nikhil, I would also want to touch upon the interviews, because I think that's a combined round. It's not just the essays for these guys, but also the interview, right? So maybe we can talk about the interview for a couple of minutes, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
that is fine with me. Yes, we can talk about the interviews.
Sure. So I'm not sure if you guys know, but I can tell you from experience that, and this is what IIM Ahmedabad has been following over years. They will start the interview with an extempore. They'll give you a topic, or you'll have to choose from a few topics. So you can select one, or it's a draw of lots, or something of that sort. And you basically get a topic, and you get to think on that topic for about a couple of minutes, and then you have to start discussing that topic with the interview panel. And usually the interview panel at Ahmedabad comprises of professors. uh, what happens is that I think mostly it is either a current topic. So in this case, it could be the impact of the COVID-19 situation on the economy, or how it's likely to change certain industries, etc. Or it can be on the India-China situation, the political situation, or it could be on Atmanirbhar Bharat, or whatever is current. So have views on that. Don't give them info or knowledge that they can just get off the internet. They would be interested in your views on that particular topic. So make sure that you're well read, and you've got those topics covered. Another area could be your specific industry and your specific your specific field of work, whether it is a corporate or an entrepreneurial venture or a social venture, whatever. Like in my case, I was coming with banking experience, so they asked me to evaluate Dr. Raghuram Rajan's performance as the RBI governor versus his predecessor. Now, I'm too small a guy to evaluate Dr. Rajan's performance, but the idea is, because I was coming from the banking space, they wanted to understand, okay, how well read I am, and how I have my views on how he managed the currency crisis, etc. Again, it was years ago when he was the governor of RBI. But that's the idea, they want to test you on your practical knowledge and not just your CADs and WorkX. And that's why it's very important that you guys are very, very well read, not only on the current affairs or the state of the economy, but also on your particular sector, because they can pick anything from that space and ask you to discuss that with them. And then there'll be counter questions on, okay, or do you think he did that well, or do you think he could have done it better, etc. So it's important that you are very well informed on what those particular topics are, and have views on them. Don't just go through the economic times of the last 1 or 3 months and then say, hey, I know it all. It's important to have views. Don't just say, I know that the Indian economy contracted by 25% year on year. So what does it mean for the economy going forward? What does it mean for your sector? What does it mean for the agricultural sector, or the manufacturing sector, or the tertiary or services sector, right? So those views will be what they would really be looking for, and not just gyan on those particular topics that they would have earmarked for you.
Got it. Sounds good. Thanks for touching up on the interview process as well. Again, Manan, if you have any insights, please feel free to chip in as and when you see the need. But I think with that, Manan, do you want to go ahead?
No, I said sure.
Okay, sounds good. So with that, we can open up the floor for any questions that the participants have. I see Aviral Jain raising a hand previously. So if you have a question, please feel free to ask.
Yes. Hi, Abhishek. Thank you for your insight. So I had a few questions with respect to essay question 1. So there, actually, I tried to reach out to a few alumni, but I could not get in touch with them. But I would like to know, like I was researching on the school, and I would like to know more about the general, I see that PGPX offers the general management program. So I would like to know more about what majors, like what kind of majors do PGPX offers, and what kind of clubs do PGPX have, given that my future career goal is to move in strategy consulting.
Okay, thanks, Aviral. See, obviously, I cannot, talk about those in great detail because, as I said, I actually went to ISB instead of Ahmedabad. But, again, Ahmedabad is a great school, and if you get that admit, obviously it should be, right up there in your consideration set. Talking about that particular question on the clubs and the specializations, I think most of the schools have various clubs depending upon the function or the industry, right? So you would have clubs on finance and marketing and operations and strategy and consulting, etc. So I think you'll get the latest details on the PGPX website, so just go through that and try to connect with some recent alums on LinkedIn, etc., where they can give you more details. On specialization, I think IIM Ahmedabad, not just for the 1-year program, but I think even for the 2-year PGP, they've always had this notion or this idea of making everybody do everything well. They don't believe in that specialization, so to speak, and that's why I think that's where you're coming from in terms of the general management aspect. Because see, the truth is, if you are a CEO, you cannot say, hey, I was the CFO earlier, now I'm the CEO, but I will only focus on finance, I don't know anything about marketing, right? And that's the idea behind making everybody do everything, so that tomorrow when you are in a leadership role, you are able to understand business holistically and not just be very myopically focused on your area of expertise. So specializations, you can look up the website again, because they keep changing. All these things like clubs or specializations, they do change year over year, or after a few years, as new ones are introduced, or a new class would come in, and they would ask for a specialization to be added, which gets added maybe in the next year or the year after that. Or because of the industry trends, like these days there's a lot of focus on emerging technologies or analytics, etc. So they may introduce specializations related to those fields as well.
Yeah.
So I think you should just go on the website for the latest info. Again, I applied years ago. I cannot really, give you those data points because they would not be current. But overall, these are the general specializations and the general clubs that you have,
Yeah.
which relate to various areas. And for any specifics, please refer to the website.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just to
Thank you.
add,
Yep.
yeah. So just to add there, Abhishek. So first part of the question in terms of clubs, they are pretty standard across sectors. So you have a life sciences or a healthcare club. There is the operations management club, which also covers clean energy, etc., which is called, I think, Anukulan. And then there is an information technology club and consulting club, obviously, right? In terms of specializations, yes, it's pretty standard in terms of whatever they offer. However, through the year, they have a list of mandatory courses which essentially are which are different from the usual core courses that you have, but they focus on certain business fundamentals that you would require as a leader. So, for example, term 3 or term 4, they have something on macroeconomic environment. There is focus on mergers and acquisitions. There's focus on corporate governance, leadership, and values. So these are the set of courses and skills that you would need irrespective of your specialization. So Ahmedabad, unlike other programs, specifically focuses on these compulsory courses throughout their 5 to 6 terms that they have, versus an ISB wherein after the core terms, which is the first 3 or 4 terms, you can basically pick and choose the number of courses that you can take.
Got
Got
it.
it.
Thank you so much, both of you, for the insights. I had just one more question. So, considering the current scenario of COVID-19, do you consider that IIM Ahmedabad offerings on international immersion program would be safe to mention in application? Just want to get your views on that.
Yes, you can. See, it's something that we're living in hope. Hopefully, the vaccines will come, and by the next, by the time next year hits, things should get better. So definitely mention on that. The school is still offering that program for the next class. Then it's a very critical part of the overall curriculum. Then definitely mention that.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. I see Pawan has a question. Pawan, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Thanks, Abhishek, first of all, for sharing all the inputs and the insights. So I have a couple of questions. So first question is with respect to essay number 1. So actually, I've already pursued a full-time MBA around 5.5 years back. So I want to understand whether that will be somewhat looked as a negative. Because IIM-A generally is quite liberal in shortlisting people for interviews. I've applied earlier a couple of times, but then I've got rejected at the interview stage. So just wanted to know your view and how should I, uh, take steps to,
Sure. So, Pawan, I think most of the top B schools like ISB or even Ahmedabad are very, very reapplicant friendly, because what they believe is that if you are reapplying, you are very keen on the school, and they would obviously want you to, be considered. See, understand from a B school perspective, B schools are also competing amongst each other for top talent, right? And most of you, I'm sure, would not only be applying to Ahmedabad but to other top schools in India and abroad, right? So every school wants to pick up the best guys, and that's why they would not reject you only because you are a reapplicant. Now, coming to your specific question on the second MBA, as I said, anything goes as long as you are able to justify why you are taking that decision, right? So if you did an MBA earlier but you believe that there is some more room for improvement, or you want a second MBA maybe from a better institution, etc., then that's fair. And you're not the first guy who's going to go for a second MBA. A lot of people in each class actually go for the second MBA to an executive MBA course. So don't worry about it. It's just that they will definitely ask you this question. It's very likely that they'll touch upon it. So have your answers prepared, and that's why I said, you should take some mocks during the next few days, so that you're prepared, and the answers should be communicated the way it is meant to be communicated. And prepare that well, and do a good job in the interview. You should be fine. It is not a negative. If they would have wanted to hold it against you, then you would not have been shortlisted. That's what I think.
Sure, sure. And my second question is with respect to the third essay. So, can I present the aspect of social work out there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Why not? If that is the one special thing, or one thing that you want the AdCom to know, then why not? So definitely do that. But don't just say that I did this in the social sector. I think it's important to understand how that will help the class experience, how that will contribute to the class, right?
Mm.
So touch upon that as well, and I think that goes for all the points in the second and the third essay, that whatever traits you are mentioning, it should not just be okay, I'm a great team player, so what? How does that add to the class experience? So you say that I'm a great team player, and I will help my syndicate or study group, it's called syndicate at Ahmedabad,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll help my syndicate in pressure situations when we are trying to work on multiple assignments under difficult timelines, etc. So link it to the class experience, so that they validate, or it gets substantiated, and that impact also comes out. So that's what I would say.
Thanks a lot, Abhishek.
Nikhil, just in the interest of time, since we are closer to 9:15, can we just restrict to say one question per person?
Sure, let's do that. Let's
I
take
just
on
want to
the,
yeah, I just want to give maximum people a chance to
yeah,
ask.
yep, sure, definitely. So the next question is from Vikram. Hey, Vikram.
Yeah. Hi, Abhishek, for the wonderful insights. So my question is particularly relating to essay one. We see that the word limit is of 1,000 words, which might be a little tough to comprehend, because like once you try and put your perspective out there, it's all left with all the additional verbiage that you put in order to like complete your essay. So what, according to you, would be an appropriate word limit? Say, if I talk about a 850 word or a 900 word or a 950 word, so would that be enough, or like do we need to substantiate with appropriate wording still 1,000?
No, I think I even touched upon it earlier. Anything in the range of 850 to 1,000 words is fine. See, my funda on essays is very different. My funda is, every word of your essay should earn its place on that paper, or on that or the portal. So yeah, another aspect is that I'm not sure if you guys know, but you cannot just copy and paste your answers to the essays in that on that portal. So you'll actually have to type word by word. What that means is, have an internal deadline for yourself, that say by 6 p.m. on the 17th, I am going to stop editing or revising the essays, and then I'll start writing on the portal, because it will take time, and you do not want to miss the deadline only because you didn't know about it. So I think that's very important. Uh, but I think every word needs to earn its place. Okay, think of it like paying rent. You will not pay extra rent, right? You will only pay whatever is needed. So go for that word limit. I mean, take, use it judiciously, and try to ensure that every word counts. It's not that you can go on talking about stories, and treating it as an elaborated version of your CV, as I said. So keep it specific, keep it to the point. Yes, if it's like 600 to 700 words, they may feel, because it's all relative, right? So if I am the AdCom guy at Ahmedabad, and I'm reviewing application after application, and the earlier ones were say 800 or 900 words or thereabouts, or even 1,000 at times, and here comes this essay with just 600 words, I would feel that, why is this person written only 600 words? Why don't we have 800 words or upwards? But nobody's going to count. I mean, it's not that they'll have a word count there and they'll penalize you for that. Obviously, you cannot go beyond the word limit, but anything in the range of 850 to 1000 should be fine in my opinion.
Understood. Thanks for the wisdom.
Sounds great. Kumar, do you have a question?
Yeah. As you mentioned earlier, like 2 years, like we will be getting out in 2022 if we get selected. So I was looking at the placement scenario of IIM Ahmedabad. So in the past couple of years, like 2 years, there has not been a single placement in auto industry. So I come from an auto background. I wanted to remain in the auto background, switching my role. So do you think I should mention that, like going from R&D to supply chain, or should I choose some other industry like FMCG or?
Uh, I think that's a good question. And see, you do not have to worry about placements as such. See, every year at any top B school, there are people who opt out of placements because one, either they're going for their own venture or they want to get a particular role in a particular company or a particular sector or a niche area. And therefore, what they do is they do not sit for placements, but they rather scout for roles off campus. And I think that's fair. If you have relevant work experience and then on top of that you have a PGPX to your name, then you would obviously get a foot in the door at a lot of these places, right? So you do not have to modify your goal because there is no automotive placement at Ahmedabad for the last couple of years. In fact, for all you know, maybe a Maruti or a Tata Motors or a Ford or whosoever visits the campus next year, when you are there. So don't worry about it, and you don't have to modify your career goal. I think you should keep your career goal the way it is and the way you want it to pan out. The only difference would be that you may not get placed on campus, but you may get placed off campus. And for that, I think networking is very important. So what you may want to do is, as soon as you get into the program, say after a couple of months, start reaching out to alums in the same space, or maybe to other people in the industry and say, hey, I come with X years of experience in automotive. These other companies and the roles that I work with. And, I'm looking forward to continuing in the auto space. I'll graduate in April of 2022. What do you think? And this is how it happens abroad. India, it has a very different system where you have these day zeros and day ones. Abroad, it's all networking. So if you start networking on time or in time, you will definitely have an offer by the time you graduate, or just a couple of weeks or months after you graduate. But it's very important to understand that you're taking this step in your career to get to a particular position or a particular place, and you believe that this MBA or this PGPX program will help you bridge that gap faster, right? So don't modify your goal. I would say that you use the other route, which is off campus networking, etc., and achieve what you have set out to achieve. That's what I would say.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Just a time check for everyone. We will have 10 more minutes of this session. So probably there is time for like 2 to 3 questions. So feel free to ask any questions you have. Sushil, do you want to go ahead with your question?
Yeah. Hi, Abhishek. This is Sushil here. I have a query regarding the work ex that I have. I have about 13 years of work ex. So by the time I join, I'll have 14 years. So I wanted to understand whether that will, kind of play against my candidature. And if so, then how should I address that?
Okay. So I'll answer it this way, Sushil. See, if they have an average work ex across 140 people, they had an average of 8.5 years last class, right? For every to make the average 9, for every 14, for every 4-year work ex guy, they need a 14-year work ex guy, right? So understand that average work ex is actually an average, but the range would be different. And usually in these programs, the range is as low as say 4 to 5 years to as high as 20-25 years also. So it doesn't matter whether you come with 4 years or 14 years. I think what matters is, one, is your candidature reflective of that? I mean, are they able to differentiate you because you come with 14 years versus somebody else who came with 9 versus somebody else who came with 4? And secondly, what are your aspirations? What are your short-term and long-term career goals? Why are you going for an MBA after 14 years of work? I think, as I said, anything that you mention should be justifiable in your interview, and that's what you should focus on. See, whether they will hold it against you or not is should not be your concern, because you cannot do anything about it, right? Rather focus on the things that you can control, which is, if they ask you that question in the interview, how will you justify this decision of going for an MBA at this point in your career?
Okay, sure. Thanks a lot.
Got it. Sounds good.
Thank you.
So just a quick update. I see some people doesn't have their mic working. So if we don't get to your question, Manan and Abhishek, please feel free to leave your email address. Maybe they can reach out to through email. But I think the next question is from Darshan. Hey, Darshan.
Hi Abhishek, hi Manan. So not taking much time, I just want to say that actually I'm working with HPCL, so I have a 5 years of work experience in energy sector. I manage projects here, and my work profile, my future goals. I am talking about supply chain management in manufacturing or e-commerce industry. So, and particularly in the energy sector, I have cleared energy risk professional examination. So can it go against my thing that basically I have worked in the energy sector. I have gained a lot of knowledge in energy sector, and now I am planning to move in manufacturing or e-commerce sector. So is it a kind of
Okay.
negative?
So again, let me just, for the benefit of the group, let me just take it, in terms of how, they would look at your candidature, and what are the things that you should worry about, and what are the things that you should not worry about. Because I think this is probably the third time I'm hearing, will it go against me? Will it go against my candidature, etc. See, it is none of your concern. Let's be frank and honest about it. You are supposed to give your best shot in your essays and your interviews, and leave it at that. They are not going to come and tell you, hey, you know what, I liked you, but I held your 14 years of experience against you, or I held your 5 years of oil experience against you. You cannot control it, so please don't think about it. Rather, focus on the task at hand, which is to turn around these essays in a very short time frame, and do a good job with those. Don't worry about stuff that you have no control over. It's like thinking, kal earthquake to nahi aayega. How do you know, man? And even if you know, how can you control it? You cannot, right? So don't worry about all these things. Please focus on what you can control, which is your performance in the interview, and your the tightness, or the crispy aspect of your essays. How do you ensure that they are relevant? How do you ensure that you are not writing a good essay but a great essay? That is what you need to focus on. Don't worry about whether this will go against me or that will go against me. Even if it does, firstly, it will not, because if they had to do it, they would have done it already, and you wouldn't have been shortlisted in the first place. But even if I were to assume that it will be, something in your candidature will be held against you, you have no control over it. So why do you want to worry about it? Rather focus on what you can control, which is essays and the interview performance, and please focus on those.
Got it. Sounds good. There were some other
Thank you.
questions.
Yeah. So Darshan, it wasn't for you specifically. I think I'll just take it in one go, because it was a repeated question, and again, as I said, you don't have any control over it. So please don't waste your time thinking about it, and just worrying about it.
Okay, sounds good. I see a few more questions in the chat box. So this one is from Arvind. Arvind, did you get your mic working? Otherwise, I can just go ahead and ask you a question. Okay, maybe not. So I will read the question. So I am working in an oil PSU as maintenance engineer. My career goal is to be a managerial positions in operations management in energy sector. How to align my goal with the current profile I have?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question, Arvind. So I think, see, you need to understand that you are at a particular position, and you want to be at, say, so you are at, say, point A, and you want to reach point B, okay? And you believe that the fastest way, or one of the fastest ways of reaching that point B, in your career is to go through the PGPX program. So, how do you link, or, how do you align your goal with your current profile is something that you'll have to do when you talk about certain traits, or certain motivations, or certain experiences that you had, which helped you arrive at this goal in the first place. And then you understood that, okay, in order to reach point B, I need to follow a path. It's like, if you want to go from Mumbai to Pune, you need to take a particular route, right? Or you want to fly from Delhi to London, you need to take a particular route. Yeah, there can be alternatives, but which is the fastest route? That's what you need to think about, right? So I think that's what, again, this is more broad because I'd like to help as many people as possible. I think understand where you are right now and where you'd like to be, and how do you bridge that gap, and how the PGPX is actually the fastest way to bridge that gap. So talk about what skills you currently possess and what skills are lacking between where you are and where you want to be, and how the PGPX would help. So for example, in your case, you're talking about being a maintenance engineer but getting into a managerial position in operations. So you can talk about the operations courses or the operations specialization if there is one at Ahmedabad. You can also talk about other things, like maybe if there's a club for manufacturing and operations, etc. Right? So talk about specifics. As I said before, don't give a very generic kind of an answer where if you were to replace IIM Ahmedabad by IIM Bangalore or IIM Bangalore by ISB, it will still hold true. Like saying that, A, this school has great faculty, which top B school would say that we do not have a great faculty? Everybody will say, and that's actually very true, because it's very difficult to become a professor and continue being associated with a top school like Ahmedabad or ISB or some of the others, because they have very specific criteria for publications of professors in certain set top journals, etc., or having published so many research papers in a span of time, etc. So it's very important to make it specific to your profile and to your goals, but don't make it generic that you have a great alumni network, you have a great profile, or a great faculty profile. I think everybody has that. Make it specific and align that to your goals.
Got it. Sounds good. We have 2 more minutes, so probably we can just take one final question. Raghav, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, hi, and thanks to you for organizing this particular session, and thanks to Abhishek and Manan as well. So my question is that I belong to a finance background. Okay, so I'm a cost and management accountant to be precise, and I don't have any particular sector preference or shifting from finance as such, out of finance as such. So how should I go for this particular 5 year term, 5 year and 10 year goals in my essay? So can you just throw a particular guidance towards
Okay.
that?
So Raghav, I think that's a question that you need to ask yourself, which is, why are you going for an MBA? Okay, and I think that's where the process comes in, and that's the beauty of this process. It actually gives you a lot more understanding of yourself and your thought process and your aspirations, because and that's the reason the top B schools ask you such questions. Don't ask me, Raghav. I'll be very upfront, very straightforward with you. I cannot tell you why you are going for an MBA and what your short-term and long-term goals would be and how you can link those and connect the dots with your current profile. I think you need to introspect and come out with an answer which is true, which is honest, which is heartfelt, because that is what you're gonna defend in your interview. If you don't feel it from the core, you are not going to be able to do a good job. It will seem very superficial, and trust me, the guy on the other side of the table is way more experienced than you are, and they will know whether you're faking it or you actually believe in it. So ask yourself, why are you going for an MBA from coming from a finance background? What do you want to achieve? So how would PGPX help you achieve that particular goal? So that's what I would say. I'm sorry, I cannot give you a precise answer because I am not you. Okay, Raghav has to give that answer for Raghav. Abhishek cannot answer for Raghav, right?
Right. Thanks a lot.
Got it. Sounds good. I think with that, it's almost the end of the session. Again, thank you very much, Abhishek and Manan, for joining us, accepting our invite on such a short notice. And thank you everyone from the participants as well for joining us and asking questions. We will be doing more sessions like this. If you are not sure, search for the GMAT Club Connect on gmatclub.com. You will get to know a lot more sessions like this. But with that, we can finish the session. But Abhishek, do you have any final thoughts on the interview process or any suggestions for the applications before we leave?
Well, yeah, I'll just say a couple of things as concluding remarks. I think, uh, as I mentioned before, in your essays, make it very specific to who you are, what you bring to the table, why you're going for an MBA, how PGPX will specifically help you achieve those goals, etc. So don't give generic gyan. Okay, I know you have lots of words to write, but don't give generic stuff. Be very specific in your answers. And for the interview, I would say, apart from the extempore, it then boils down to your experience and more of a behavioral interview. I mean, at least that's what happened in my case. So be honest, just be yourself. Don't try to present somebody else who you are not at this point. I understand that the idea is to get in, but I think you will have a higher chance of getting in if you are just being honest and being who you are than trying to be somebody who you are not. With that, I'll just like to congratulate you on the shortlist and wish you good luck for your future rounds at Ahmedabad as well as other B schools. And yeah, so that would be it from my side. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yep. Thank you everyone for joining. We will hopefully see you in the later sessions. Bye everyone.